Plaza fans, this is Christine Atwell, and I'm the director of Plaza Theater Company's 2018 production of Steel Magnolias. So we're all familiar with this classic Southern tale, 6 women whose lives unfold within the walls of Truby's Beauty Shop. So as I approached this show, my very first concern was, how am I going to take this story that everybody knows, well-known, beloved stage play, movie, and make it into something really special? I really wanted something that audiences would feel like they were getting something out of or seeing it for the first time. Obviously, you know, the concern is, how are we going to entertain with something that's so familiar to everybody? So, you know, a lot of times directors will have, or actors will have, different takes on how they approach a new project. Sometimes they want to keep it fresh, so they don't really want to look too much at what's been done before in an effort to make it something very new and unique. But I tend to favor going ahead and watching what's been done before. It's always interesting to note what's been done well and what hasn't, and also just there's always some kind of inspiration that tends to strike when I'm watching the way something's been done in the past. So one of the first things I wanted to do was to go back and watch the movie of Steel Magnolias from 1989. And of course, we all remember this star-studded cast. We have Dolly Parton playing Truby, Sally Field as Malin, Julia Roberts, Shelby, Daryl Hannah in the role of Benell, Shirley MacLaine as Weezer, and Olympia Dukakis as Clary. So, of course, I watched this movie, I laughed, I cried, just like I think everyone does when they see this story portrayed again and again. But it had been a while. Like I said, this movie came out in 1989. It had been quite some time since I'd seen it, and I realized several things as I watched it. First of all, my oldest daughter at the time, when I was directing this show, was 16. And so she's a lot older than my children had been since the last time I'd seen it. And that just brought up so many new thoughts and emotions as I watched the show. I knew full well at that point about the intense love that mothers and daughters experience, and the intense conflict mothers and daughters can experience over the course of their relationship. Another thing that stood out to me when I watched the movie was there are so many. Like I said, this film struck me very differently 10 years ago, 15 years ago, however long it had been since I watched it, than it did, you know, as I was preparing to direct the show, because there are so many women of different ages and experiences that we see in this show, but we're able to relate to so much what is happening. This is a story about real women with very relatable emotions, and that became something very key to me as I went into directing the stage play. And the third thing and most important thing that stood out for me as I went back and watched the movie was the sense of community. That is so important. This movie is, or the whole story revolves around a small town, a much slower pace of life than most of us experience. And I felt like it was a very timely call to, as we all rush around in busy lives, to remember how important it is to have those relationships, that life is really about people. Especially having that core group of intimate friends that we can really be our most authentic around, that we can share life's up and downs, just remembering that that's one of the most important things in life and what gives it meaning and joy. I thought, what a gift to be able to contribute that sense of community, that reminder to our audiences. And so that really became my main driving force as I began to put this production together. So as I've already been saying, relationships are key to this production, which can be kind of a challenge in itself because there's nothing flashy. There's nothing, you know, that's like, ooh, you know, visual sensation, anything like that. So this is really what we had to rely on. So it was very important to make the most of these characters and these relationships. So I just want to talk a little bit about these characters. I think we all love they're just such lovable, like I said, relatable characters. So first we have Truby, who is kind of at the center of all this. Everything takes place in the play within her beauty shop. And we get to witness, first of all, through each of these characters, such an amazing journey. They either remind us ourselves or someone we know. So we have Truby, who's kind of the rock, the heart of this show.
She seems awful nice. And besides, I'm kind of enjoying the thought of hiring somebody with a past.
She can't be more than 18. She hadn't had time to have a past.
Oh, honey, it's the 80s. If you can achieve puberty, you can achieve a past.
Oh, yuck, Trudy, this is awful. Oh.
And now, honey, how did you make this coffee?
I poured hot water through the thing like you said.
Where did you get the water?
It was boiling on the stove.
Did you happen to notice the hot dogs at the bottom of the
Oh, don't worry. I love a good hot dog. Just not with cream and sugar.
She really kind of functions as a therapist throughout this show. She's definitely the most static character. We do see a little bit of change. She's a big romantic, and of course this was played by Angela Berkey in our production. She's a fantastic Truby, really brought that bubbliness, that effervescence to this character that it needs, and that energy that kind of keeps each scene moving. She's the one who steps in to break up the fight or to change the subject when things get awkward, and she did such a great job. But we see Truby's journey being one of she has all these romantic longings and inclinations, but what she begins to realize, of course, through some of the trauma of the show is that it's indeed about the little things, that she can find love and happiness in very much more everyday circumstances than what she might have originally thought. And of course, the very first scene of the play, we have Truby, and she is training her new stylist that's come into the salon, Annelle. And if Truby is our most static character, Annelle is absolutely our most dynamic. We see her in the beginning broken and scared and young and naive. And we kind of watch as she transforms, maybe goes a little bit overboard, has a little bit of a wild phase, and then we see her settle into this very healthy, grounded woman. And we had two amazing actresses in Madison Heaps and Courtney Lee Harris portray this role of Annelle. They just had such an ability to have that cute innocence that it just makes your heart go out to Annelle as you see her kind of work through these awkward moments, and it's hilarious at the same time, right? As we laugh along as she's trying so hard to kind of figure things out.
You finally found her way. It's been a couple of months, hasn't it?
Monkey to Queen behind bars, and I was driven. I went wild. I was drinking, running around, smoking.
Jezebel.
But Truby helped me see the error of my ways. She has helped me realize that I have something to offer. I joined a church last month, and Truby's helped me see that I have talents. I'm doing guest lectures on beauty at the trade school.
Our little Annelle here has become one of the hottest little tickets in the town.
Truby, stop. I am enjoying the city more, and I am so excited for the Christmas festival tonight. I wanted to come to it all my life, and now I live here.
Ooh, tell her who you're going to date with.
Truby, hush.
Oh, come on now. Shelby's practically responsible for the whole entire thing anyway.
Sammy DeSoto.
Oh my goodness, does he have a body that doesn't stop anywhere?
How am I responsible? We met when he was bartending at your wedding last spring. He makes a mean cherry coke.
Oh, romance. Oh, now this is the stuff that I live for.
Of course, then we have our fun pair in Weezer and Clary. We're always waiting for Weezer to take the stage. We had Joyce Eckstein, Shauna Lewis in this part, and it's such a fun rawness and crassness to the show that we don't really see in anybody else. We just can't hardly wait to see what Weezer's going to do or say next. And of course, this is paired with the much more sophisticated, collected Clary, but it played in this production by Trish Saitoon, Trish is just such an amazing actress who brings a wealth of experience, of course, many productions on the Plaza stage and around the Metroplex. She really did an excellent job in this production of making Clary. She gave her all the confidence and self-assuredness of someone that you'd expect of her social position and status, yet she made her so approachable and relatable. And I love the exchanges between Clary and Weezer, where you could see why they were unlikely but such the best of friends. Weezer just has this way of bringing out all that little bit of crassness in Clary as well, and it was so much fun to watch those little exchanges, almost like you're getting an intimate look at this relationship that no one else gets to see, and the actresses just did such an amazing job of portraying that.
Well, then thanks. And Drum would never aim a gun at a lady.
Oh, he's a real gentleman, Lynn. I bet he takes the dishes out of the sink before he pees in it.
That is just unhealthy.
All I know is that my poor dog has to be sedated. He has a condition.
Are you sure that's true? Brett is a very old dog.
I'm only going by what the vet tells me.
Which bet?
Whitey Black.
Well, now there's your first mistake. Whitey Black is a moron. I'm not even sure he has opposable thumbs.
Miss Weezer, Daddy is not trying to drive you crazy. He's just trying to make my reception nice. His heart's in the right place.
But he cannot do this to my dog. My dog is on his last legs. What am I supposed to do with the poor animal?
I've got a lot of good recipes right here.
Honey, whatever your name is, would you look out that window and check on my dog? While I smack Clary right in her smart mouth. You may not believe this, but these are the dearest friends I have in this town.
And then, of course, at the heart of our show, the characters we get to follow in a little bit more intimate light, we have Malin and Shelby. Malin and Shelby, of course, are the mother and daughter, and we really get to see the dynamics of that relationship, the fun, the challenges that go along with that, and especially as, there's coming of age story here too, as Shelby is getting older and starting her own family, and also battling healthcare issues, and we really get to experience what that's like from her end as well as her mother's as she watches this and tries to let her daughter grow into this new, much more independent place in life. Of course, we had Jillian Harrison, who came in as our Shelby. She was actually a later addition to our cast. We initially had someone else cast in the role who had some conflicts, and so that's a challenging thing in a production that is so much about relationship, to have to bring in a new cast member later in the process. But Jillian did such an amazing job that the transition was so smooth and so wonderful. The ladies were so welcoming of her to the cast, and she was so eager, just to jump in and start to kind of mesh with what we already had going. Jillian just brought such a wonderful bubbly zest, that youthfulness, that, looking through rose-colored glasses at the beginning of her adult life to that role. It was just absolutely beautiful. But there was also there's that sweetness that she brought, but also that sass, that comes about from trying to prove to your mom and all her friends that you really are grown up too. And so it just made it so fun. We were able to really see the loving dynamics between Shelby and Malin, as well as some of that strife. It was just super enjoyable. I'll never forget the first time, speaking of Jillian, what an amazing job she did, the first time we had to rehearse the seizure scene. It's the one I was most concerned about for a couple reasons. I just thought, as an actress, like, I can't even imagine the difficulty of a physically accurate portrayal of this, and the sensitivity, that you're going to have to take, considering this is a serious situation. This is something that people have gone through, and people in the audience might have a very personal experience with. I just thought, this is something that's going to need some work. And the very first run through we did was Jillian just did such an overwhelmingly amazing job. And that kind of characterized really what each actress was bringing to the table at every rehearsal and in outside preparation. I mean, they just really were committed and just came in with so much to offer in these roles. It was amazing, and so much of what made this such a stellar production. And then, of course, last but absolutely not least was Courtney Mitchell's portrayal of Malin, that I cannot talk about without getting emotional, because she brought so much to this character, so much more. I mean, and again, going back to there's a movie, there's past productions. I mean, you just really think, what can someone do differently? How can someone bring something so special and unique and new to this role? And she did. What's very interesting is she told me from the very beginning, I've never done a straight play before. This is my first straight play. She had done many musicals at Plaza, but this was her first venture into straight plays. And I mean, I'm just blown over to consider that. So what she did that I so appreciated was took this very controlling, neurotic nature that we find in Malin, and brought an energy to it, and this insanely brilliant comedic timing. It's this character who's sometimes depressed, sometimes anxious. She's just kind of in this midlife crunch, and she's dealing with the daughter with serious health issues, and how do I let go? And she just brought so much humor to that, so much relatability, that it just made it a spectacular thing to watch. You just really couldn't take your eyes off of her, and her range of emotion, from anger, concern, sorrow, love, frustration, that sometimes is oscillating constantly during an individual scene, and she just handled it absolutely beautifully. And I can't say enough for all the support she had through that from the other actresses too, who were always right there with her and giving 110%. It was just amazing. I really was in awe of these ladies.
Or even inconvenienced. Least of all Jackson, I'm sure.
You're jealous because you no longer have a say-so in what I do, and that drives you up the wall. You're ready to spit nails because you can't call the shots.
I did not raise my daughter to speak to me this way.
Yes, you did. Anytime any of us asked you what you wanted us to be when we grew up, what did you say?
Tell me I'm not moved, please.
Come on, tell me what you said. Answer me.
I said all I wanted was for you to be happy. Okay.
One thing that was very important to me in this rendition of the show, like I said, was to focus on the characters and the journeys, like I've been talking about. I wanted the audience to really be able to connect to the characters. I wanted them to be front and center. And maybe, my big goal would be that, well, and this is probably my own personal issue, but I can't hardly watch something just for entertainment's sake. I really need to know, what is my takeaway? How can I grow from what I've just experienced? And so I really wanted that for my audiences in this show. I really wanted them to have a takeaway, and I've talked about that sense of community that is so important, and I really wanted a reminder for that. So very early on in this process, because of where I wanted the focus to be, I discussed with Plaza producer Jason Barris in some of those early meetings, like, look, I know the 80s are a very fun era, and we've really played that up in some past productions, and that's always going to be there, right? Because the 80s are just fun, and there's some nostalgia there that we don't want to miss out on. But I told him, the way I described it, for those of you who are familiar with these shows, I said, I really want this to be more This Is Us kind of feel to it, and less the Goldbergs. two shows that have 80s elements to them that are portrayed in very different ways. You know, we have this drama, we have this comedy. I just really wanted it to be true to life, so that we could keep the focus on, like I said, on the relationships and really connecting with our audience. So I was thrilled as I had these conversations with the cast and with the crew, and where I wanted my focus to be, how much they understood it. Some specifics, I mean, Wendy Cersei, oh my goodness, she came in and partnered. She's just a miracle worker with set design, just creates masterpieces. You know, so much of the fun of going to see a live production is that time when you first come into the theater and you're waiting for the show to start and you're looking around at, just kind of taking in the ambiance and thinking of what's going to happen in the setting. And so that what you see as you come in, the set is so important. And Wendy just creates, like I said, these masterpieces when it comes to the set. And she completely understood my vision. She was so thorough in making sure that she understood what I wanted. But then she made this a very realistic, very cozy set, but then added these feminine touches. She came up with this color scheme that incorporated sage and a lot of corals. So it was very feminine, very trouvy, but very inviting for our audiences. I feel like it just put people at ease from the moment that they came in. And then, of course, Sunny Barris helping out with all the finishing touches on props. That we had little dishes and teacups and a functional hot plate. We had magazines from the 80s to lend that authentic era feel. We had nail polish that was in all the appropriate colors for the time. So it really just set the tone for this amazing experience from the very beginning when you walked in. So they were definitely able to take this realism and this vision that I had and make it something super fun. So I really loved it. One of the challenges that we had set-wise, it's kind of different. A lot of times what directors face is there's scene changes, you have props coming on and off, and you have to consider, how are we going to do that? Ours was the complete opposite. Everything stayed. We had the same set throughout the entire show. So of course, it's very important to make sure that set looked great. But some of the other challenges where we had to have all these places where we could have certain actions, and they were very large. And when you're dealing with theater in the round, you really have to worry about not blocking anyone's line of sight, making sure everyone could see. So, just to give you an idea, we needed a reception desk where we could be answering the phone, because there are multiple phone calls that take place throughout the show, taking notes. So we needed a desk and a phone, and we needed a place to do nails and a place to wash hair. That's one of the fun things about this show is at Plaza, we've always incorporated a working sink for that and actually done hair washing on stage. We need a place, in addition to hang coats. We need 2 full hair cutting stations. So you can just imagine we've already got a stage full of pieces that are quite large, and we have to figure it out. And then on top of that, I was determined that this production needed a full kitchen. In the past, we'd never done that before. But what that ends up happening in the script, there's often times where we're needing things from the kitchen. So you can scratch it, or you can have a character go off, especially the scene with the seizure. And we need the juice for Shelby. And so in the past, actresses would have to go off, get the juice. So I had to incorporate this just because I felt like this is going to keep this so much more of us all in the same room and a feeling that we're all in on what is happening. So what we did was, first of all, they just had incredible foresight with the way that we laid out the set. Jason did a great job of putting all these large pieces and stations in a way that we could still see and work around them as we moved around the stage as actors. And then we took our mini stage. He decided on that place to make a little kitchen with a counter and a fridge that had things in it, like the whipped cream that Courtney as Malin was so fond of putting on top of her cup of juice and digging in when she was stress eating and on the stage. It was so fun. But so we have this working fridge and the counter. We had a bar stool up there, so we're really able to. It just ended up being so wonderful to create a little more ambiance, a little more coziness. A lot of the actresses decided to use that kitchen at some point. I think it was the goal of every actress to have a reason to go up to the mini stage into the kitchen at some point. And I'm pretty sure our Weezers decided that needed to be Weezer's favorite hangout, which she's always grabbing something out of the fridge. Or so it just became a really fun part of our show. I'm super glad we included and found a way to put that in there.
I just want to hit somebody until they feel as bad as I do. I just want to hit something and want to hit it hard.
Here! Hit this, Melinda! Are you crazy? Are you high? Mary, look at that picture that say I swear queens are broke. Hit her, Ribby, on 911! Don't let her beauty stand in her way. Hit her! This is your chance to help your fellow man, Weezer. Let go of it! Let go of me! Well, Liz, you just missed a chance of a lifetime. Hope the chickens in Paris would get their IT to take a whack at Weezer. You are a pig from hell.
One of my very favorite things about this show was this sense of community. That really became the main theme that I wanted to speak to in this show, how important that is. So one thing that I decided to incorporate, and it was a little risky, was I wanted every scene to have what I called a circle moment. It sounds cheesy just saying that, and it came across as cheesy when I first told my actresses about it too. But I really felt committed to it. I felt very strongly that, and you know, of course the trouble here is you need your audience to buy in. It needs to feel authentic. And so it does seem kind of cheesy, but I really felt strongly that no matter what happened in each scene, and there's a lot of highs and lows in every scene in this show, and it's wonderful, but I felt like there needed to be a point where the women came together in a physical kind of circle group hug that symbolized their unity, the support and the affection that they held for each other no matter what. And so we stuck to that vision. And of course, these women who were such sweet, loving spirits anyway, began to make connections throughout the process. And sure enough, everything just kind of fell in place. And these circle moments almost became a thing, I think, each scene that the audience began to anticipate and be so excited for, like, oh, it's coming, the circle moment. I'm sure they didn't call it that in their heads, but it's kind of that thing that we just look forward to, because there can be so much tension and chaos, just like in real life. So we all were looking forward to that moment when we knew everything was okay and they were there for each other. So it actually did end up working. I'm really glad that the actresses were with me on that. We were able to incorporate it and create something very, very real. So one of the biggest blessings in directing is kind of like parenting. You're wanting to work yourself out of a job. You know, early on, you're very important, you know, as a director. I'm bringing my research, my blocking, coordinating the cast and crew, trying to explain my vision so that we kind of have a common jumping off point. And as I shared with the cast and crew, they completely got it. I mean, it's so amazing. They just ran with it, each in their own unique ways. And so it was very cool to not only be doing a show about, you know, community and that being important, but to really watch the beauty of that unfolding, not only on stage, but behind the scenes as well. Each person, as I've said before, both cast and crew, just made such a huge, earnest contribution to this collective effort. And so I had the joy of watching every rehearsal become less and less mine and more theirs, this collective, beautiful, organic thing. It was just such a wonderful experience. And what really made it feel successful is that then when the audiences came in, they were completely on board with everything that we'd worked towards. I knew from comments we received from people after the shows that were along the lines of, I just love these women. Oh, this just reminds me so much of me and my sister or girlfriend or mom. We had comments from people saying, that's what I want in my life. That's what we need more of. And I know what they meant. It's that love, that connection, that joy of just doing life together. That's so important. So it was so awesome to see all of our hard work really be realized and understood and be very meaningful for our audiences.
Well, I may just take you up on that. You all don't know how wonderful you are.
Of course we do.
I was super grateful, of course, for the opportunity of bringing Steel Magnolias together, for all of you who did get to see it one more time. And I thank you so much for listening in today as I've had the opportunity to pull back the curtain on this amazing, amazing production today. Again, this is Christine Atwell. It's been a pleasure. Take care, and I look forward to seeing everyone at the theater again real soon.